Welcome back to another Draw with Mrs. Shano. Today we are going to be making another still life. You have been making lots of still life art with me. We've been talking about that for a bit. And just to remind you, if you do not remember what a still life is an arrangement of objects that cannot move on their own. So again, a still life is something that usually is not alive. I mean, if you have a vase of flowers, that could be a still life, and you might say, well, Mrs. Shano, flowers are alive. But those flowers are cut away from their roots and put in a vase, so they're not going to grow and change anymore. Therefore, they're at that point kind of an object. So I went to the beach last weekend and I saw and collected a bunch of seashells, and it inspired me to make this seashell still life. And I'm going to draw it with you, and you can draw it with me, and I hope you have fun. It's a lot easier than you would think. So if you are drawing on clicky.com, here it is, clicky.com, open it up and start drawing. To get your paper nice and tall, you click that little white paper, you click portrait, you hit OK. You got a nice tall paper. If you're drawing on paper, like a normal kiddo, grab your piece of paper and a pencil. We're going to start by making a line drawing. One of the elements of art that is super important is line, and I'm going to start by making a line into a shape we all know called an oval. So I'm going to start at the top of my page and move down to about here. I'm high up on my page, but not way at the top. I want some room for clouds, and I want lots of room for bucket and shells, so I'm going to start about here. And we're going to make a, not orange me, let's go back to a normal color. We're going to make a nice, big, long, skinny oval. I'm going to move a little further down, actually. There we go. Long, skinny oval, almost touching the sides of the paper, but not quite touching the side of the paper. We're thinking of the space on our page and filling up most of that page. There's only a little bit of white space on the edges. So this big long oval will be the top of our pail. Now the top of a pail is actually a circle, but if you look at a pail from the side, that circle kind of flattens and looks like an oval, which is why we drew an oval. Now we're going to make this lip of the pail. And to make that little lip hanging over, you're going to put a little curve here, a little curve there, and then again we're going to make a curved line just like the bottom of that oval that connects these two. Whee! There we go. So we've got our oval, we've got the lip of our bucket. Now we're going to draw the sides and bottom of our bucket. I might clean up some of those lines that I'm unhappy with. It's a little tricky drawing on Clicky, as some of you know if you've messed with clicky.com. But we don't aim for perfection in art, we're aiming for fun. Alright, so when I draw the sides of my bucket, I want the bottom of my bucket to be a little narrower or skinnier than the top. So I'm going to make two angled diagonal lines. So I'm going to start in a little bit from that lip, and I'm going to draw a line down, and I'm going to stop about there. I want some space at the bottom to draw my shells. And the same thing on this side, only I'm going to angle it inward this way. So I'm going to come in a little bit from that lip and angle it in and down and stop. So now I need to draw the bottom of my pail. Because this pail is shaped like a cylinder with a circle at the top, a circle on the bottom, and rounded around, we're going to make a curved line to show that this form, this cylindrical form that we're trying to draw, is round. So I'm curving up that line. And if I'm not happy with it, I'm just going to erase and try again. I think my first one was even better than that one. I'm just struggling today. See, even grown-ups have days where they're just not feeling like they're doing their best. And that's okay. I have to remind myself of that sometimes too, that if I'm not doing my best one day, that it's okay and I can forgive myself and just do my best and let that be enough. Alrighty, so now that I have my cute little bucket, I'm going to put two little hooks on each end to attach the handle to. Little hook down there. Let me connect it all the way. There we go. Little hook, go over here. maybe I'll make it a little bigger. I think I want that hook a little bigger. There we go. And now I'm going to make that handle. So I'm going to start at this little hook right here, curve over and up. And then I'm going to go a little bit higher up and follow the same shape, over and up. I feel like I didn't do that quite right. I'm going to start that again. Down here, over and up. I'll go a little higher, that way it can connect it properly. And again, over and up. That's better. Now, I do need to erase a part. This little handle is in front of the pail. I have an overlapping shape. So if this handle is in front of this pail, I wouldn't see this little line here anymore. So I'm going to erase that line, and I'd like you to do the same. And I'm going to erase this little line because that handle is disappearing inside that little hook, that little opening there. Now I've got my handle, I've got my pail, I'm ready for some seashells. Now these seashells are much easier to draw than you would think. We're going to start with this twisty seashell that looks like a unicorn horn. And just so you know, once you learn how to draw this seashell, you'll know how to draw the perfect unicorn horn if you're into drawing unicorn horns or narwhal horns. Much, much easier than you'd think to draw. We're going to start with a basic shape, an oval. Again, shapes are a very important element of art. The elements of art are line, shape, color, form, value, space, and texture. So we are already using line and shape, and we've talked about form and space. So let's talk about shape. We're going to make an oval, overlapping with this bucket here. So oval, up and around. There we go. That's going to be the bottom of our shell. And again, we're thinking of space. In 3D space, if this shell is in front of this bucket, we're not going to see this bucket anymore. So I'm going to take my eraser and erase where they overlap. Goodbye. Now for the opening of my seashell, I'm going to draw another small oval. So little oval inside of this bigger oval for the opening to my seashell. Now, the little spirals are very easy to draw. You just have to follow the rule that each one will get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So from the edge of this oval, you're going to come in a bit to its little shoulder up here, and you're going to curve up, around, and over and connect it into the little shoulder over here. So we're not going as wide as the bottom oval. Again, where they overlap with the bucket, we're going to erase because the shell's in front of my bucket. I'm going to erase this little mistake I have here too. I like my lines to be nice and smooth. As smooth as I can get them anyway. All right, so again, we're going to come in a little bit from this the edge of this layer of the shell, over, up, and in. And then again, smaller this time, over, up, and in, over, up, and in, over, up, and in. And there's my shell. Way easier than I bet you thought it would be to draw. So there is my seashell. Now you can go in and use pattern. That is a principle of design in art. Patterns really add a lot of interest to your art. So I'm going to add a pattern of some squiggly lines on my seashell. Whoops, not with my eraser tool. I'm going to go ahead and that pattern will also add texture to my art. Putting that pattern on that seashell kind of shows the texture that those shells actually have. When I was at the beach last weekend and I was finding all these little spiral shells, they had these cute little bumps, these interesting bumps all along the shell. Such a fun texture. And it was a pattern as well as a texture. In nature, you find many patterns, many more than you'd think. Seashells have beautiful designs and patterns on them. There's that spiral shell. Now we're going to move on to this shell. I don't remember what the name of those shells are, so I apologize. If you know, good for you. Maybe you should let me know. But super easy to draw. We're going to draw an oval with a squiggle across of it. across of it, a squiggle across it. I'm just going to put a few little speckles on it too. There's that shell. Now for our scallop shell. And this is a scallop shell and not a clam shell because of the lines going down vertically like this. A clam shell has horizontal lines that scoop side to side, side to side, but a scallop shell has these ridges with these lines that move vertically down, up and down the shell. So I'm going to start my scallop shell by moving over to the side of my little pail and putting a little line like that, and then I'm going to come in and in like that. So that's going to be the little top of the shell over there. And then I'm going to go over, around, scoop, and connect. And that is the shape of your scallop shell. Again, we're thinking of 3D space, and in 3D space, when you're outside, if one object is in front of another object, unless this is clear like glass, you aren't going to see that object where they overlap anymore. So this scallop shell is not transparent. It is opaque, which means it is totally not see-through at all. So I'm going to erase that bucket because it's hiding behind the shell. There we go, overlapping shapes. Now we're on to lines to show texture. So the texture of a scallop shell is kind of bumpy if you run your fingers across it because of all these vertical lines running down, little bumps in the shell. And there it is. There is our texture for our scallop shell. Now I'm going to show the horizon line. The horizon is where the land kind of appears to meet the sky, disappears off into the distance. So I'm just going to make little bumpies to give the appearance of sand. Because we're at the beach in our picture, in our still life, we're at the beach. And I'm also going to put sand in my pail, but not up to the tippy top. So I'm going to come a little bit from the top, and I'm going to curve up and across to show that my pail is filled with sand. I would like to draw a starfish in here too. So to draw a starfish, I'm going to start a little bit higher up than my bucket. And I'm going to start by drawing the top of my star. Then line over this way, line over this way, so to the right, to the left. And then from that point here, you're going to come down diagonally, down diagonally. And then from this line, I'm going to go over. From this line, I'm going to go out and over to the right. But I want my starfish to appear that some child came along and stuffed it into the sand so its legs are buried a bit. So instead of drawing the bottoms of that starfish's legs, I'm just going to put a little upside down V here and wiggle it out to make it look like that starfish is stuck in the sand. Now I've got a lot of lines going on here, and I do have some that I need to erase. This starfish is in front of the back of this bucket where it overlaps here. So I'm going to erase the back of the bucket where the starfish is overlapping with it because the starfish is in front. And I'm going to do that over here too where I see the back of that bucket. Now this sand is in front of the starfish because the starfish is buried in it, but this line for the sand should be disappearing behind the starfish. So this line of sand I'm going to erase, 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 erase. And I do think I'd like to put some lines on the starfish for some texture. Whenever I have found dried up starfish on the beach, they have fun little bumps along their back, at least the ones I have found. So I'm putting some little speckles and dots to show the texture of that little starfish. And don't be shy. If you want to put some little speckles to show the texture of that sandy sand, go ahead. I'm going to put some little dots here to show the texture of the sand under the bucket. I'm going to scatter some little dots all around. There we go. The last thing I need to add in my drawing before I play with color are some clouds because I feel like it. If you look at my drawing here that's finished and my drawing here, it just feels a little empty up here. It needs a little something up there. And clouds are a beautiful organic shape. Geometric shapes are shapes that you can name, like stars, circles, rectangles. Geometric shapes, organic shapes, like clouds, are shapes that don't necessarily have a name. They're shapes you might find in nature. Clouds are organic shapes. Leaves are organic shapes. Raindrops are organic shapes. They don't have a specific name. So I'm just going to make some little bumps. You see I made some big, some small, some high, some low, and I'm just bouncing out my cloud, disappearing behind my pail here. And all of a sudden, my sky is just so much more interesting. Those clouds have such a fun, moving line work to them, and they're fun to look at because of that. So bounce out those clouds, disappearing behind my pail. There is my drawing. I hope your drawing is coming along beautiful. This is a really fun still life that if you finish coloring it, it would be lovely to hang up on your wall. Because who doesn't like a day at the beach? I don't think I know anyone who would not enjoy hunting for seashells on a beautiful, warm, sunny day. I'm going to go ahead and color this really quickly because I can do it super quickly on my computer. You take your time and use the materials you want to use, whether it's crayons or markers or paint or colored pencils or pastels, whatever you have, whatever you want to color with, go for it. Let's see. One thing I do want you to think about is when you're choosing colors, choose colors that are vibrant next to each other, meaning they're very bright and they stand out very well next to each other. The reason I'm selecting an orange for my pail is because on the color wheel, orange and blue are color opposites. And when you've got color opposites, they really pop when they're placed next to each other. So placing this orange next to this bright blue makes a beautiful, vibrant contrast of color. I'm also using variation. Variation is an important word in art. Variety is a principle of design, and variety means that you have different kinds of things, different sizes, different shapes, different lines, different colors, variety. So by having a yellowish color with an orangish yellow, it adds more variety of color, and my drawing isn't as flat or boring. I'm going to pick a nice light, neutral kind of yellow for my sand. Sand can be white, sand can be dark brown, sand can be black in some places in the world, but here in Florida and a lot of the Atlantic coast, besides the Pacific coast, not the Pacific, the Gulf of Mexico coast here, the sand is kind of an off-white yellowish kind of color. It's a beautiful buttery color. So that's the color I'm making it. I love the sand at the Gulf of Mexico. It's just gorgeous. Alrighty, so time to color in my shells. The starfish I found at the beach was actually orange, but I don't want to put orange next to an orange pail because orange next to orange just doesn't pop. It's not vibrant. So I'm going to go ahead and select a soft pink color for my starfish because I have seen pink starfishes before. I also want to balance my art out by putting that pink somewhere else too, because just one bright pink spot, my eye kind of goes right to that starfish, and I don't want my eye to get stuck on one part of my picture and not enjoy traveling to other parts of my picture. So to solve that problem of having that bright pink there, I'm going to balance that out and make my scallop pink too. And I have found scallops with pink coloring on them before. Now for my two shells here, I'm going to pick what we call, again, neutral colors. Neutral colors are soft, maybe grays, browns, tans. They're not very loud, bright colors. So I'm going to move to orange here and find a tannish brown color for my shell. When I found the spiral shells at the beach, a lot of them were white, off-white, cream, tan, and brown. So I'm going to make this spiral shell a nice tan brownish color, like the ones that I had, whoopsies, found on the beach. Here we go. Boop, boop. Okay. Now the interior, the inside of the shell, would be darker than the outside, so I'm just going to pick a darker brown to color inside so it looks like a shadow in there, like it's a dark cave-like interior of a shell. Now for this shell, I'm going to pick a very creamy kind of color, but not the same color as my sand. I don't want it to get lost in that sand. Now, just to, again, to balance out my art, I might take this pink again and put little pink dots to further decorate my spiral shell. Again, it's adding more pattern to my art, which adds interest, visual interest. Visual interest is when your eye looks at something and goes, that's pretty interesting, and you look at it for a long time. So putting these little pink dots just makes my pattern more interesting here, and again, it balances out the pink here and here. So now I've got 3 spots of pink, 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 and it's like a triangle of balance. And now on this shell, I put some blue here before. I took the blue from the sky. Again, for balance, I have blue up here. I want to just bring somehow a little blue down here too. You don't have to do these things that I'm doing. I'm just letting you know why I'm making the art choices that I'm making. There's a purpose for all of the choices I'm making in my drawing. I'm thinking very hard about what I know about art when I'm creating my own artwork. And I'd like you to get to the point where you're doing that too. You are smart boys and girls, and you're really good problem solvers, and I want you to bring those skills into your creation of artwork. Because art making is super fun, but it's also, I don't know, there's this quote I love. It says, it goes like this. It says, creativity is intelligence having fun. And I love that quote because that is what art is. It's creativity and intelligence having fun together. I'm putting a little white here just for a little highlight. And I'm going to grab that orange again and put it over here for a shadow. I'm getting fancy now. I'm adding value to my form. Value is light to dark in art. So I'm pretending that this is a real pail and it's 3D and the light's hitting it here and making it bright white over here and it's shadowed over here so it's darker over here. It's just fun to think about shadows and highlights and value in art. I think I'm just about done. Maybe the last thing I'll do is I'll grab this tan and I'll just put a little shadow under my shells. If you're using crayons, take a brown crayon and lightly shade under your pail to make it look like a shadow. It just makes the space that you're drawing look more realistic and look more 3D to have shadows and value. So there it is, a still life of seashells in a pail at the beach or next to a pail. I hope that you have a ton of fun drawing this with me. And if you're not finished, I hope you love it enough that you finish it up and hang it up or give it to someone you love. Thank you for drawing with me. I will see you guys next time. Bye.